Some of our reporters, I'm not one of them, tweet. You know what Twitter is, I assume. It's, much to my surprise, it has become a legitimate form of news now. I had to cover a bankruptcy hearing by monitoring the tweets of print reporters one day, and I had to monitor it to make sure my story was accurate. That's literally, Twitter has become a news source.
And I think that we've actually come a long way as a field in terms of using social media. I know that this past International Literacy Day, for those of you who are on Twitter, we had a hugely successful campaign, I would say. Our key partners in that were the Ontario Literacy Coalition, ABC Life Literacy Canada, Frontier College, Movement for Canadian Literacy, and we were the top trend that week. Literacy was the top trend on Twitter. And so, what does that mean? Like, really, what does that mean? It's the same thing as being like one of the top news stories, or, you know, it's the top Google search. So, I mean, that was a really huge accomplishment, I think, in terms of building an online literacy community and creating awareness. So I just wanted to plug that. Yeah.
But I think that the issue when some of this social media type stuff is that a huge portion of our audience that we want to get the word out to is not computer literate. So some of these people, not only are they not able to use these tools, but they don't have access to.
But not all of them, actually. Not all. And I think that's why we need to use like different tools for different audiences, which is why a strategy is required. Like, I think a lot of times we like jump to tools without thinking about a strategy. Because when I did, I was up north in Timmins in May, and one of the practitioners that I was speaking to uses Facebook as a discussion group for his class. So in that sense, like, people are, like, they're learning the technology, but they're using that discussion forum because the people in his class already knew that forum. It's not being exclusive, it's not being used as a teaching tool. It's literally just everyone in the class knew that forum, so they started using it as a discussion group. So, and I'm not downplaying what you're saying, you're absolutely correct, but that's why you need to use different tools for different audiences and having an overall strategy.
Can I just expand on that?
Yeah, of course.
I think another one of the challenges, speaking of your audiences, something that I've always been taught when I think about marketing is to use a message that relates to your audience. But in for a subject like literacy, you know, so many of the people who need this cause, you know, they're hidden. We don't know who we're trying to reach. So how do you then create a message that speaks to an audience when you don't know who the audience is, right? So
you always have to know who the audience is.
Well, that's the problem. Right? Many of these people are embarrassed about their problems, that they're ashamed to come forward and talk about the issue that they have. So how can we get a message out to them, trying to you know, sort of respect the fact that they don't want to be brought into the limelight?
That's a good question, actually. Do you want to like try to tackle that question? Would we be looking at different audiences, or?
Well, it's a great question. I think just hearing from what you, listening to what you just said, though, I think the public, there's a real importance to, again, broaden that conversation amongst the public, right? Because you're saying that there's people that don't resonate with the way that we're talking about the literacy cause. I think the audience there then tells me it's the public. We need to do a better job to create public conversation about literacy.
I have an example of a way that we've created a public conversation. I work with an organization called Literacy Link South Central, and we're a network. And what we did was we actually brought in a literacy advocate who happened to be a mannequin. And we put her out sort of around town. We were in London, Ontario. We put her out around town and had her performing literacy skills that people don't necessarily think of as literacy skills. So, for example, one week she was gardening, right? She had to follow the rules to know how to grow her flowers, to garden the correct way. One week she was, you know, making some food, having a picnic in a park, things like that. People don't understand that following a recipe is a literacy-related activity. So by bringing this into the forefront and allowing people to see that literacy is everywhere, we opened up a little bit of a discussion in London, and it's actually gone sort of across the province. I think it was a really successful way to do that.
The number two search engine in the world right now is actually YouTube. There's, I think it's 6 billion downloads a month right now. And so I would absolutely say to you, think about adding video into anything that you're doing and whatever you're doing. Think of the beautiful story you just told us. And if you had taken maybe you did, some video of a couple of those pieces, then you can tag that in and tie it into other places. I mean, there's certainly true that, you know, if you're trying to get someone who has literacy needs, you need to talk to that person very differently than that person's friend or family who's maybe going to encourage them to do so. So in one case, it's we're going to help you understand the story and the things that are able. And for the person in need, maybe they need to watch a video. I don't know. I'm just saying those are the kinds of things. But I would really encourage you to think about video right now. Is the absolute fastest growing marketing tool.
We use YouTube in our news stories.
And just one thing on that, just quickly, I mean, I really think that our cause, as I said, it has a lot of potential because we have the great stories to tell. And in this world of social media, the word I keep hearing about is that we're all journalists. We're all citizen journalists, so we can all tell this story through that social media platform. Thank you.
Right at the very back in the blue vest.
Hi, I'm Marcia Kroll. Just a quick comment on some of what people were saying. I think this last comment about who's our target audience, obviously it's some of our learners, but I actually find that to re-educate the public, which includes journalists, because prior to literacy, I was in suicide prevention, family violence, and so forth and so on, and I find that all those social issues, I think we have this impression, because we're involved in it, like somebody was saying before, that sometimes we narrow our view of things. And I know when I get on a plane, my favorite thing to do is capture my little audience that's sitting next to me. And they always say, what do you do? And then you go, oh, actually, and I can, you know, I learned this from working in suicide prevention, that the first things most people will say, oh, well, you know, nobody in my family, or not, you know, it's not an issue for me. And then I sort of, or no, I know, they would often say, well, it's an Aboriginal issue, or, you know, youth issue, and I think that's very interesting because the highest number is white Caucasian males. What? So, that would start that. Well, now I do that with literacy. And what I find, and I found it in our own situation, in our own home, my husband and I, he's an educator. He established a university. He has nothing but educators in his family except for his youngest brother, his 7 or 6 siblings. His youngest brother is completely illiterate. And he lives in New Zealand. They're from New Zealand, so it's not too much different from Canada. Then my adopted father was illiterate. And then we found out that one of our script writers for our program, she started to learn more about literacy and realized that after all these years, her sister, who was 2 years younger, same household, same parents, same school, same teachers, she's a scriptwriter. Her life is English, writing English. Her sister, she realized, had a behavior that she now understood could be a literacy issue, and it turned out that she was functionally illiterate. And so all of a sudden, I made this little assumption, that maybe I'm wrong, but I think, unfortunately, that it probably has its place in almost every household or extended close families.
For sure.
So my thing is to try to get people to kind of begin to recognize the signs, if you will. And so so I think part of my responsibility is not just to put out a program out there for people who are now willing to engage and trying to change some things for themselves, but to also educate those of us who are more literate or don't seemingly have some of those issues to understand what are we really talking about, because we're probably talking about your system.
Yeah.
Or your brother.
Can I disagree with you and agree with you all at the same time? Because I think as a marketing professional, I cannot and I would never agree to the fact that I think the general public should be considered an audience. The general public is not an audience. There are subsects of the general public. There are women aged 35 to 50 who are an audience. Or there are white middle-aged Caucasian men who are an audience. But the general public is not an audience. And you are tackling the general public, but you're tackling them one group at a time. You're tackling them one person at a time. One person on the plane, one group that has family members, one group that works in a workplace where there are issues. So you are, eventually that tackles the public issue question or the general public question, but you tackle the general public one audience at a time. So
Oh,
I
but
just
I
needed to say that out
There's
loud.
another way of looking at it as well. Because I loved your story, and you can think of it as the entry point. And if you said, you know, within the general public, there is all of those different segments, and there's all those people in need. But as you say, I bet almost every household or certainly extended family, there's an entry point, and the question is, who is that target audience in that person that's going to be able to maybe it's, if you get 1 in every 12 people in Canada, made up the number, to be able to recognize what a real need is, and that was all you had. Wow, that's way more efficient than trying to talk to everybody, and you can have way more impact because they can see through and actually make things happen. So I thought it was beautiful.
Okay, guys, I got the 5 minute sign 1 minute ago, which means we have 4 minutes, which means I'm just going to ask everyone at the table to give a number 1 piece of advice for promoting literacy in any way, shape, or form that you want to think about. You can talk about a tool, you can talk about a resource, you can talk about a strategy. If you had to throw out 1 piece of advice, what would it be?
In the case of the media, if you want attention, have a person like a Jacques Demers who's ready to speak, and I know how hard it is, but that's how a reporter builds a story. If you just have the spokespeople there, they can't build the story. And I've gone to news events before where they've had this spokesman and not the real person. We need a real person to build a story around. And the other thing is, you know, as I said, don't hold news conferences at late at night or 5 o'clock on Friday, because you won't get any media coverage. The other thing is, politicians practice this all the time. This is for the people who are actually speaking to the media. They practice their quotes. They literally will stand and look in a mirror and practice what they're going to say to the media. I know it sounds funny. That's how they do it. The most famous case is an MP named Myron Thompson from the Reform Party. This is the Reform Party. I hate to use them again, but they have one quote where they got on every newscast. You don't give a 30-second clip. You give a 5-second clip in TV or radio. He was against same-sex marriage, and he said, "I'm for Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve." And the clip was used everywhere.
Okay, so practice your quote and get a real person. It doesn't have to be Dr. Merritt, but it has to be a real person.
A real person who's suffering from illiteracy, it needs a real person. Yeah.
Short quote, real person.
Just quickly, we all know we have inspiring stories to tell with this cause. We have a lot of people that we can tell that to, but I urge each and every one of you, we've got great practitioners, community literacy organizations here. Pick up the phone, call your local newspaper or media outlet, book a coffee with them, tell them that story.
The assignment editor.
And the assignment editor, sorry.
The assignment editor, not the report.
Yeah, exactly. The assignment editor.
They're the ones with the power.
Book a coffee with them, tell them the story, you'll get some coverage.
I have to say, experiment. Even if you think you have the right story, you're wrong. It can be told better. It can be told more effectively. And it's like the practice thing. Take it, talk to one person, see what happens. Oh, it didn't work. You know, I've been out looking for a job before. You call up one person and they hung up on you. Don't use the same words as the next person. It's the same thing here. We have a behavior that we want. We want people to be aware. We want people to help those in need. We want all these things to do. Try out your story. If it doesn't work, change it up. Try it again. Try something different.
And I would just say that marketing is literally about persuasion, and it takes different stories and different arguments to persuade different people. So don't think one story will do, don't think one tool will do, use the gamut. And fill out your evaluation forms. Thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed it.